Today we're in beautiful Sedona, Arizona, reviewing the Scharen Cycles DG. DG stands for decomposed granite. That's the type of soil they have over in Ashland, Oregon, where this was hand built by Scharen. This is the slackest bike I've ever ridden or reviewed, and so I'm excited to see how it does in Sedona's rocky, steep terrain. I have a whole dedicated first look review where we dive into the details of this bike and get nerdy, but today's all about the ride. Now, when I talked to Will about this bike, he said this thing is designed for getting you to the top of the hill pretty well, and then getting you down the hill really well. So it's really meant for riding downhill more than like flowy blue and green trails. So I'm going to try and find some faster, steeper trails where it comes alive. It's got a really interesting design philosophy with the geometry. It's a very forward shifted geo where it rewards a modern riding technique where you're over the front. He wanted to keep a fairly low stack, which I think makes sense with how slack this is, because it puts your weight on the front tire a little more and you'll get less washouts. It's going to take some getting used to. It's a little lower stack than I'm used to. The steeper the downhill, the taller I like my stack, because then I don't feel like all my weight's shifting totally forward. But that's kind of the name of the game on this thing, is to shift your weight totally forward. We got a 150 mil fork. On flats and climbs, you definitely feel the slack head angle. It's a little wandery. The steering feels very heavy. I love that feel at speed, especially on downhills. A little bit strange feeling on traverses or flatter sections of trail. Once you get going over 15 miles an hour, it feels really good. Surprising how neutral this feels despite the radical geo numbers. Now, a lot of people expect slack bikes to climb technical features like garbage. My experience has been the opposite. I like climbing on slack bikes because that front tire is way ahead of you and you can really lean forward without worrying about going over the bars. And I know that sounds crazy to talk about going over the bars on a climb. On really big moves, you can definitely go over the bars on a climb. All right, this is a really tough move. Oh, let's see how she does. Oh my goodness, it made it. Wow, impressive. That's a really tough switchback. We got a steep seat angle and we have a shorter reach just by like 10 or 15 mil than I'm used to on super slack enduro bikes. I'm not going to say the cockpit's cramped, but I'm not stretched out, which is nice. And even though some bikes I've ridden are longer in the reach, this wheelbase still feels about the same because it's so slack. So that wheel's out there, but my reach isn't. Very comfortable distance to the bars. A little taller stack, I could pedal this all day, no problem. Oh, I'm in the wrong gear. We've had some unofficial trail work being done here, which is not good. If you come to Sedona and a feature's too hard, don't make it easier, please. Ride an easier trail. Don't stack rocks. Don't make shortcuts that are easier. Stick to the trail, and please don't modify it. I've been finding a lot of illegal and frankly awful trail modifications lately. Man, at a slower speed, the head angle, I am fighting it just a little, and that's to be expected. It corners like the chain stays longer than it is, probably due to that long front center. And if you lean over, get your weight forward, it's kind of like having a longer chainstay anyway, because most of your weight's ahead of it. It's way better than I thought on blue sections. Some bikes are just slack, but the other numbers don't support it very well. This is so much more than its head angle. Oh, what a fun bike. Feels light and zippy under acceleration. Beautiful ride feel. Swooping corners are a joy on this thing. You really need modern riding technique to ride this though. If your last bike was in the 90s and you're ready to get into modern riding, you're not gonna ride this bike very well without a couple clinics. The riding technique is so different than what we rode in the 90s, and you're gonna be fighting it and struggling to make it come alive. With a couple clinics on modern riding technique, it'll be golden. This thing's fun. A lot of these slack bikes need a really fast, really steep trail to have fun. I'm having plenty fun on just like a nice little blue with a little bit of black in it. I am having to consciously weight that front wheel. I'm used to the stack height now. Oh man, still playful. What a fun bike. This thing's cool. I love how planted it feels in the corners without the bottom bracket feeling insanely low. This thing's really fun. Way more fun than I expected, even on mellower trails. Now, if you don't have double black diamonds, I wouldn't be shopping for this bike. If you're just planning on riding it on blues and blacks, I'd probably get something a little bit steeper head angle, unless you're constantly at speeds over 20 miles an hour, then I think you'll love this thing. Oh, what a bike. My goodness. Loose, gravelly Jeep fire road climb. Kind of reminiscent of what you'd find on a lot of enduro stages. Does not climb like an XC bike geo-wise, but if you're used to slack bikes, it feels pretty normal. Like, doesn't feel tons slacker than a 65, 64 degree head angle bike. Let's go over a few features that I really like about this bike. I like that it's full external cable routing. Personally, I prefer under the top tube a little more, but that's just me, especially if you're shuttling and running a shuttle pad, then your cables aren't getting pushed against the frame all the time. I love the short seat tube. I could easily fit a 170 mil reverb on here. I think the dropouts are absolutely beautiful. I love the raw meets elegance. When I looked online and researched the bike before I got one, it didn't quite convey what it conveys in person. It's just beautiful. I love the arch top tube design. Yes, you get maybe half-inch less standover, but the seat tube's so low you have a ton of standover anyway, so that's not a problem at all to me. You could almost fit a second water bottle in there. That's pretty awesome. You could also put one down here. I am getting a fair amount of chain slap even with these covered. We're getting some chipping on the powder coat there, unfortunately. So I would run like a neoprene chain protector on that. But man, this thing's way more fun than I thought it'd be, especially on mellower stuff. Let's go hit some steeper stuff where it'll come alive a little more. This is a healthy reminder that geometry and how a bike rides is so much more than one number. The more you can understand how the geometry measurements play into each other, the better you can understand which bike's for you. If you're struggling to understand that and you need my recommendations on which bike's for you, I do that over on Patreon. I'd be happy to help you over there. It's my bike consultation service. We chat together one-on-one, and I ask you a whole bunch of questions, and then I give you a handful of recommendations for bikes that'd be great for where you live, how you ride, and what your budget is. I love helping people, and I'd be happy to help you over there. When you look at the Geo, the head angle just kind of shouts at you and says, whoa, base all your assumptions just on the head angle, and that'd be a mistake. There's no way I'd want this for an XC race or a long 5-day bike packing trip. I mean, it'd do it. These are bikes. You can ride them anywhere. You can commute on this. You can take it to the bike park. You can do anything. But if I were picking a bike for like long XC days or pedally days or bike packing, I'd pick something different. And that should not be a surprise to anyone. This bike wasn't really designed with that in mind. All right, here we've got a feature that's so steep you can't walk down it. It's almost vertical. I'll try and capture it on camera, but GoPro makes everything look flat. About a 20-foot long roll with some steps and undulations in it. Very steep. I can't walk down it. So we're gonna ride down it and see how this slack head angle helps on stuff like this. If you're new to rolls like this, you use a ton of front brake, not so much back brake. Little slam on the back, but the front felt really stable and good. That front wheel's so far ahead of you, feels like you're not gonna go over the bars. It's kind of like an anti-wheelie bar in the front. I think Squamish, Bellingham, Pacific Northwest, North Shore, I think really slack bikes make a lot of sense out there. For most trails though, it's a little more radical than most people need. But here we are doing what it's not supposed to do very well, and it's doing it well. So much confidence on this bike. Very quiet, very smooth, very smooth. It's so interesting how a slack bike steers different because of the angle the bars are at. I can feel the difference in the sweep because of the angle it's steering at. It's kind of like the steering wheel tilt in your car. The slacker it gets, the more you tilt it back. And it's more like you're steering like this than on top of it. That's a big reason why modern riding technique is required on this. You need to be steering from your core, not from on top of the bike. I love this chainstay length. I like the reach length too. Will did an awesome job matching this to fit my body dimensions. Some bikes you just fight for balance. Everywhere you go, your knees are just going left and right to stay balanced on. This bike balances beautifully. I'm running an Assegai up front and a DHR2 in the back. Total downhill tires, which you want on a really slack bike. I usually don't run these medium tires around here. They're a little slow and draggy. But on a slack bike, you need all that grip on the front, especially cornering knobs, because there's very little weight on that wheel out in front of you. And when you go to turn, if your tires aren't totally gripping, they're gonna push and drift the front. Not a great feeling. Oh man, once this thing picks up a little speed, it says, "Is that all you got? I dare you to go faster." And it just feels more comfortable the faster you go. Steep switchback climb. I've had my bars hit my knees a couple times on switchbacks for two reasons. One, it's slacker, so the bars are back a little. Two, slightly shorter reach. And three, the shorter stack. So on really tight stuff, my knees and bars are fighting for the same space. I've never had that before. Amazing how different 2 or 3 degrees can feel. Little lethargic on the steering on the climbing, but not as much as I thought it'd be. And that's a testament to Will's design philosophy. He's done a great job having the other geo measurements balance out that slack head angle. I don't think we're going to see mainstream XC bikes with a 61.3 degree head angle, but I do think they're going to come in closer to 65 pretty soon, especially on the World Cup. Those trails are getting trickier. What a beautiful day. Great to be alive. Man, this just picks its way up technical stuff really well. Great climber. Man, what a bike. This thing's special. Tons of secret sauce going on this bike. I wasn't filming, but I just hit my knees on the bar back there. Left knee and then right knee on the dropper, then the shifter. Just trying to recover my balance from a slow switchback. Really interesting. Here we go. Let's just motor up this. With slack head angles, you need a little momentum when climbing. You can't just be an eagle and put in minimum effort. You have to kind of be pushing the pace and sprinting a little. With a little momentum and speed, the floppiness disappears. It wants speed, and its geometry needs speed to stay upright. So if you're just chilling, going really slow, you're going to be fighting it the whole way. You need to shift to a harder gear and push a little harder. This is a lot spookier and steeper than it looks on camera. If you've been to the mountain bike festival, you've probably ridden this, but most people haven't ridden this little diving board feature, especially on a hardtail. Let's see how this does. Drops are no problem on this thing. There we go. Man, this thing's confident. Unreal how much confidence I have on this thing. So much traction too. Nice, couple 24-inch steps in there. Man, this thing's confident. So meant for this stuff. I can't go nearly as fast as on a full suspension. Still a hardtail, but man, this thing's coming alive on this. Nice smooth ride feel. You gotta stay over the front. You can't lean back and get over the back wheel and get lazy. You have to stay charging and attacking on this, or that front wheel will lose it. My goodness, that's fun. I think Southern California, this is the perfect hardtail for you fast enduro riders who want the simplicity of a hardtail, who have young bones and young joints and don't mind getting rattled around a little. That's just the hardtail life. Really glued to the ground, but still retains some playfulness. I'm glad the bottom bracket's not any lower. What a cool bike. This thing's really surprising me. Faster you go, the more this bike rewards you. Man, it handles those steep bomb holes really well, like that big 12-inch hole back there at the bottom of a rocky step. So much traction despite all this loose shale looking rock down here. Oh man, this thing is fun. Man, I absolutely love this bike on this type of stuff. Over 20 miles an hour, yes please. It has the stability of a bike with long chainstays, but the playfulness and pop and maneuverability of a short chainstay bike. What a cool combination. I don't normally like 150 mil hardtails. Some of those 150 bikes feel like a stapler, where the geo just changes rapidly, but this handles it extremely well. This is so slack, by the time it's bottomed out, it's still a slack bike, which is nice. I'd love to see his take on a 120, 130 mil downcountry bike. So right now, it's about the slowest to go where it comes alive. Underriding a slack bike like this can be underwhelming. But man, I'll tell you what, I'll never find the limit of this bike. I don't have the skills or the guts to push it to where this thing is in over its head. This thing is so capable. Despite it being a fairly long bike, one of the longest wheelbases I've reviewed, it doesn't handle like a long bike at speed. It just kind of darts around stuff. It feels real nice underneath you. Kind of has a bit of a 27.5 vibe, despite the fact that we're running meaty downhill 29ers. What a really cool combination. If this thing were a car, it'd be a Datsun 510 with a small aluminum V8 in it. Total sleeper, sexy lines, elegant. And then when you go to drive it, it's just an absolute beast. Now we're on a trail called Brewer. I don't remember what the exact rating is. It's really hard to ride well on a hardtail. There's a lot of 12 to 20 inch steps in a row, and hardtails don't do great on that. But if any hardtail will, it's this Scharen DG. Man, the more I ride this bike, the more I fall in love with it. This is gonna be a hard one to send back. So much fun to ride. Let's see if that lower stack proves to be an issue at all right here. I've gotten used to it today, and maybe a taller stack would take too much weight off the front and I'd be plowing everywhere. Maybe that lower stack is part of the magic that makes this bike so special. A little yoga session going on out here, awesome. Good morning. I'm picking terrible lines. I don't ride this a whole lot. Hard to stay in control on most hardtails. Ooh, I should have gone over those rocks. Need to get to know this a little better. It looks so flat on GoPro, but you can just tell how fast it picks up speed with zero pedaling. I need a little bit less grippy rear tire to kind of drift some of these corners a little better. Man, this thing just eats this up. This is so impressive. I've never ridden another hardtail this fast on this trail. Hello. Good morning. You're great right there. It's just me. Thanks a lot. What a blast. Man, this thing is good. I think this would probably be my top pick for an enduro racer. Just smooth, so in control. I can carry way more speed into things than I should. Good morning. Oh, thanks so much. It's just me. Have a great day. Man, this thing charges. So comfortable on this. Here's one of the few places a 150 mil fork makes sense on a hardtail. What a hardtail. Will, incredible for your first hardtail model to ride this well. There are companies that have been making hardtails for 20 years that can't get a hardtail to ride like this. Bravo. If this were my bike, I would seriously get in trouble with how fast you could go. I'd have a lot more injuries because it just begs you to push it harder and harder and harder. Man, this is composed. It doesn't track like a full suspension, but I can charge like I'm more on my full suspension than a hardtail. Holy cow. Will, you're insane. I don't know where you could find trails in Ashland where this thing comes alive, but bravo. You better fire up the oxyacetylene torch because you're gonna be getting a lot of orders soon. This bike is so special, so special, so much special sauce on this. Normally I prefer a full suspension on that trail, but today I preferred the hardtail. There was something about this. I think it's that forward shifted geometry. You can get so far over the front that the front fork is doing so much work that the back just kind of skips along and doesn't slam into stuff. It was so much fun. Now, it would fatigue me on a trail like Whole Enchilada. Still a hardtail, still gonna feel like riding a jackhammer after 4 hours. But if I had to pick a hardtail for Whole Enchilada, it'd be this. This bike is so much more than the sum of its parts. It's so much more than 1 or 2 or 3 geo measurements. It's the complete package, and it just comes alive when you are charging and pushing it. I've been falling out of love lately with enduro rowdy hardtails because in the places where they come alive, I'd rather be on a full suspension, but not this bike. There was something about it that just gave me the simplicity of the hardtail, the control, the maneuverability, and it had so much stability, and I could just carry speed through chunk without getting bounced offline. The low stack didn't bother me one bit. In fact, I wouldn't change the stack at all. I'd leave it exactly how it is. So bravo, Will. I think I would have designed this different on paper and it would have ridden worse. So I'm glad that people like Will are pushing the boundaries, thinking outside of the box and trying new things so that we can see exactly what's possible. There's about 5 or 6 other bikes in this category that stack up nicely with it, that have a little bit different flavors and varieties. If you want to pick my brain on any hardtail I've ridden and any of the full suspensions I've ridden and get my personalized recommendation for you, I offer that bike consultation service over on Patreon. I'd be happy to help you over there. It's a pay service. It's how I support my family and how I make money to make this channel possible. So I'm curious, where would you want to ride this bike and would it fit well for your trails? Post down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's a party in the mountains and you're invited.